Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to Strategic Command World War II, World at War. The invasion of Russia has just begun. It is June of 1941. Our next turn is going to move us into July, and the German forces have overwhelmed the Soviet forces along the border with Germany, and they are now driving deep into the Soviet Union. You can see Brest-Litovsk has fallen. All of the key fortresses have fallen. We have launched a couple of isolated counterattacks. A suicidal tank unit is driving on Tarnopol amidst the German army. We have a garrison unit which has actually penetrated into East Prussia. But other than that, we had a large number of troops all destroyed along the border. The Germans have not yet reached our main defensive line along the Dnieper River, which is kind of out in this direction, out toward Riga, toward Daugavpils, and toward Kiev, but they will certainly reach that defensive line this turn. Additionally, in the south, they have already reached that line near Kiernston at the head of the Crimean Peninsula. We have a little bit deeper of a defensive line here behind the Dnieper to the east toward Melitopol, which means we could lose these two units in front and we'd still have a solid cohesive line. But with that being said, otherwise our line is pretty thin and without a lot of reserves. So that does make me a little bit nervous. I'm hoping that I'm far enough back that the Germans won't be able to fully penetrate our lines. Even if they do overwhelm us, they won't be able to get in behind us. But it will be interesting to see how things play out here in this turn because there's not much between us and them. They'll probably use an attack or two against this garrison. They'll probably use one attack against this armor. But other than that, they're just going to race toward our lines here. Hopefully they attack Kiev rather than the units around it. This is a thin line. This can certainly be penetrated and overwhelmed, and we'll have to see how things play out. With that being said, the front in China is continuing to go reasonably well. We continue to hold our line sort of in central and in northern China, while in southern China we continue to try and turn the Japanese flank, destroying another garrison unit here in our drive on Fuzhou. Additionally, the Africa Corps is cut off at the moment. We have a corps here astride their supply line. We have naval assets removing all the supply from Benghazi, and hopefully the Africa Corps will be completely out of supply next turn, and maybe we can attack and do some more damage to them, perhaps even destroying them, but we'll see. In England, not much else to say. It's, same old, same old. The British forces are building up there, and we are preparing, or we are ensuring that a counterattack against England itself does not occur, although with our massive naval assets, that's somewhat unlikely. The U.S. is not in the war yet, so no attack on the U.S. forces there. And the British, meanwhile, are, continuing to kind of chill out and just hang out, dude. I don't know why I said that. Anyway, with that being said, and there are still some troops in East Africa that we just can't get rid of because fucking supply. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump through this and see what the Axis has in store for us. Prime Minister Winston Churchill, the Special Operations Executive, has now been operating since the summer of 1940, but so far it has had little impact. A report on its activities shows that with more funding, the SOE would be able to significantly increase the size and scope of its activities. This would enable it to have a much greater impact in supporting and setting up resistance movements throughout Europe. The cost to put SOE on a sounder footing and with facilities to operate in many occupied countries will be 100 MPPs at 20 MPPs for 5 turns. Would you like to provide funding to SOE so that we can live up to its mission to set Europe ablaze? It is strongly recommended to say yes to this, as doing so will significantly increase the potential for resistance movements throughout Europe to carry out actions against their occupiers. Through investing in SOE, we may also receive periodic reports from resistance groups on Axis dispositions, which could prove useful to Allied strategy. From January 1944, this investment in SOE may start to bear more fruit, as provided London is in Allied hands, the USA and USSR are both in the war, and there are significant Allied forces near Paris or eastern Poland, as the Axis will face disruption and uprisings in other locations. Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll do it. Office of Secretary of War. Now that the USSR has entered the war, we could assist her in her struggle by shipping supplies through the Pacific to Vladivostok in the Far East. These supplies will sail under the Soviet flag. Sending them this way is far safer than through the Atlantic. Given the difficult situation facing the USSR, these goods are worth more to the Soviet Union than they are to us. Therefore, the cost of sending these supplies is only 40 MPP, while they'll be worth 80 to the USSR. Would you like to send supplies through to the Pacific? USA started shipping supplies to the USSR via Vladivostok from June 1941 and is strongly recommend. I just don't understand why you have all these decisions that are like, of course you're going to choose yes. Why wouldn't you choose yes? Anyway. New Soviet forces raising near Stalingrad. UK starts Arctic supply convoys to the USSR. Axis raiders are disrupting our convoys with Egypt and Canada. Roosevelt broadcasts warnings of danger of a Nazi victory in Europe. UK develops infantry weapons level 2. Nice. Science report progress in spying. And that's good. Very good. Good. Oh, 521 supply. Wow. Soviet Union just got money, man. Now that they're in the war, it's like all hands on deck. Hopefully it's not too late. Hopefully the Germans don't break through right away. The Atlantic Charter Joint Declaration by Churchill and Roosevelt as a first statement of war aims. Okay. Okay, so you can see they cut off the garrison unit here and some of their advances, reinforcements to some of the Italian troops in East Africa. Japanese carriers continue to bomb the Chinese forces in China. We'll see how rapidly they move to the east. You can see there the, was that the Romanian or the Hungarian forces just destroyed our garrison unit there. My hope is that through forced marches they make it to our front lines, but that they can't go beyond that. Like, maybe they can get to our front, but if it requires a forced march, then they can't actually attack on the same turn. So that would be my hope. But again, we'll see. The last turn was much longer from a turn resolution perspective because of all the German units now in action. Additionally, by the way, let's not forget there are still soldiers fighting in Greece. All right, if they want to use their bombers against garrisons in East Prussia, I'm 100% on board with them wasting their tactical air force doing that. Bombing in Greece. Huh, they're using their artillery there, too. Japanese, by the way, now have heavy artillery in China. That could prove problematic. All right, well, their armor advances to Kiev. They make their first attack on our defensive lines here across the river near Kiev. Meanwhile, their armor moves on Minsk and takes Minsk, but didn't actually make it to the front lines yet. The attack on Kherson continues. Ah, how many units are they going to move and attack there? Kherson is overwhelmed, and so the first part of our Dnieper line is theoretically penetrated. That would give them a bridge over the Dnieper. They can now also advance into the heart of the Caucasus and take Sevastopol. Sorry, Sevastopol. However you want to pronounce it. Meanwhile, a large number of German units actually here in Greece. There's an armored unit, an army unit, at least an army corps, an army, and an armored unit, although it's a slightly out-of-date armored unit. Okay, so some infantry does make it to the Dnieper River. I don't know if they can attack or not. We'll see. Infantry units moving toward the Riga portion of the line. That's actually our best defended line. We have fortifications in place there that will give our defenders a pretty big advantage. Whereas in the south, we don't have those fortifications. Meanwhile, the Greek front was breached. The armies to the on the eastern portion of the peninsula there were destroyed, which means only a garrison unit stands between them and Athens. The loss of Kiev reduces Soviet national morale. They're just placing garrison units there? Okay. That was actually not as bad as it could have been. I fully expected them to breach the line right away. We are now 2 full turns into... Oh, the first Chinese fighters were destroyed. Cyan damage from bombing. Second, Russian light tanks. The 11th garrison, 12th garrison, the Sevastopol Corps destroyed. But all told, they didn't penetrate the line, and we are now 2 full turns into the invasion of the USSR, which I think is a good thing. My understanding is they get a bonus for the first 2 turns, a huge bonus in the attack, and that bonus is now going to be gone. Okay, so we spotted some Japanese amphibious craft, perhaps moving somewhere in China to get behind our lines. Meanwhile, a lot of intelligence. USSR Something Corps is ready to deploy. Probably not in the north. That's probably the most secure portion of the line. Maybe near Orsha? Or near Kiev. Kiev is probably going to be the spot that's going to get hit the hardest. I guess we could deploy them to near to Sevastopol. Perhaps down here in the peninsula in the south, just because we presume they're going to drive into the... Alright, let's reinforce these guys to max. I kind of want to move this corps down to Sevastopol. Alright, we're going to move our fleet here over to Odessa to cut off the ports, or limit the port's supply. Move this corps down here to Sevastopol. Move these armored units forward here. Move this armored train forward. Nice! So they can go ahead and attack that German army there. That'll also divert some attention, I think, toward them. We'll build our troops back up so this army's back to full strength. I don't think there's any way they withstand the German advance, though. So we probably need to move a second unit down here behind them. Preferably a reinforced unit. But it doesn't look like any of those units are at full strength. So we're just going to have to accept them being an understrength unit. Guess we'll operate these guys. They're pretty cheap. Alright, so I just shifted some troops around. I stacked a whole bunch of troops up here behind this line, because I think with the German armor here, it would make sense that they're going to try and make a breakthrough here across the Dnieper. So if we stack up a second line of defense, that'll prevent an immediate breakthrough here with sort of a thickening of our rear. Meanwhile, we've got a couple of units here stacked up between the garrison at Petropavlovsk. We've now got a corps here behind the river, and we've also got this armored car here in front of the river, or this armored train. I'm going to leave the train in place. I know it probably will die, but again, as much time as we can delay the Germans as far west as possible, all the better. Meanwhile, the engineers here finished their fortifications, so we're actually going to go ahead and move this armored unit here toward Orsha. So we've got sort of a double defensive line back here near Orsha, because then, again, there's a strong German front here as well. These guys aren't dug in at all. Maybe it makes more sense to pull this armor back so it can counterattack. Move these guys south. Move these guys... Oh, shit, I can't. There. Meanwhile... Alright. Hopefully that works. We'll see. Just shifted some troops around here. Meanwhile, these engineers have completed their job here. So I suppose we can go ahead and we can shift them. I'd like to switch them with this infantry here. I'm just worried the Germans are going to advance. Well, this is actually a city, so we're not going to dig this city in. I don't even know if we can. Yeah, you can't fortify a city. So move these guys into this fortification here. We're just going to take the risk that the Germans aren't going to attack here. Let's see, this will set it this way. It's going to take a while, but we'll hopefully the Germans don't attack here. We try and defend in front of the river. That seems a little foolish. But I don't think they'll get here to attack this one unit. So I'm going to gamble that they won't. Alright, let's operate this army unit south. They'll base out of Karakov and kind of be the southern defensive army. Well, this army up here is the northern defensive army. This mechanized unit, which was ravaged, is going to go ahead and reinforce. Get back up to full strength. We're going to reinforce all the units that we can to try and get our troops up to full strength. again, the fact that we lost the war against Finland is actually kind of playing into our hands. Additionally, we need to upgrade as many of our army units as we can here that are not already upgraded to infantry weapon level 1. That's going to be a big difference here if we don't have at least infantry weapons level 1. The problem is a lot of the troops that the Germans have already advanced against don't at least have that. And if you're adjacent to an enemy unit, you can't upgrade your army weapons. But in any event, I think we upgraded almost everybody that we could. We did move a few units around that couldn't upgrade. Guess we can upgrade this garrison unit here. Might not be worth the money, but it's only 10 MPPs. These guys are already upgraded. Yeah, we'll leave Sevastopol alone. I'm not going to actually... Oh, can we operate these guys here? We can. So I guess we'll put these guys down here. It's a double fortification. So hopefully they can hold out there for a bit. Meanwhile, do I have enough money to operate any of these guys? I don't. Oh, I can move this army. Question is how far. Oh, nice. I can move them all the way over here. Okay, so we can move the 1st Guards army all the way to the west here. Could even move them across here in the south, but we're not going to do that. We'll move them to the center of the line here near Orsha, because that's the direct road to Moscow. The other troops back here, the tanks can't move yet, so we'll have to hold off on that till next turn. The Soviet subs are going to go in here and raid shipping lines with Sweden. And I think that's going to do it for the Soviet turn. There's not much else I can do there. Meanwhile, in North Africa, the Africa Corps is not completely out of supply. It looks like they did get a little bit of supply back. I don't know how they got the supply. Nice! Alright. So we just destroyed the German armored car unit in the Africa Corps. We are advancing on Benghazi. So 2 of the 4 German Africa Corps units have been destroyed. We destroyed their anti-tank guns and their armored cars. We now still have a Corps of Infantry and the Africa Corps here to deal with. Now they could move here toward Elagala and link back up with some supply. Although how much supply they're really drawing through Tripoli is a question. In any event, that was a good result. The Greeks were going to fall back a little bit here toward Larisha. This army over. We'll try and defend here. We're just trying to buy time for Greece. It's not a matter of, like, actually winning. These guys are going to reinforce. Okay. Alright, our navy is pretty much all upgraded now. Africa's done. North Africa. East Africa. None of my troops have any frickin' supply. I'm never gonna finish these jerks off. Alright, so move my army back this way. Maybe I can bring the army down here. I don't know how I'm supposed to finish off Mogadishu. I guess maybe what we need is we need to move our fleet down here and blockade them. I suppose that could be a thing. So I guess we'll do that. We'll move 2 ships off Mogadishu, cut the supply to the port. Maybe that'll be what we need. Meanwhile, we're going to transport this Indian Corps here to Egypt. Give a little bit more reinforcements to the North Africa forces. From an Indian perspective, let's go ahead and raise another... Well, I don't want to raise a garrison. I'd rather raise a corps, but I don't have enough money for it. I thought I did. Oh, I'm down to 78. Okay. So we don't have any money for that. The British... Yeah. Not enough money with the British at the moment. What about research for the British? I'm sure we can spend some money there. It looks like we finished the infantry weapon level 2, so we can go ahead and save get a little bit of money back there by removing the investment. Amphib war is already being researched. Infantry warfare needs to be researched. And... probably industrial technology. Meanwhile, the USS 212. It's not yet at the max. It's already level 2 infantry. Probably ground attack. That's already researched. Yeah, I guess we'll go with ground attack. Meanwhile, in China, I want to get that morale bonus for the Chinese troops, so we just spent a little bit of money there. Probably should have looked at what needed to be reinforced before we did that. We can reinforce those guys to full strength. Shit. Chinese troops in the north taking a bit of a beating. These Japanese troops' morale is doing really well. Huh. Alright, well, that was a mistake. Bunch of attacks to no real purpose. Meanwhile, in the south, we're hanging in there. Nice, these Japanese troops' supply must be poor. And we destroyed another Japanese unit in China! We got a core! Alright. Wait. Why didn't I attack? Should have attacked those bombers. Well, that's shit. Those results weren't quite as good as we had hoped. In any event, though, we did destroy another Japanese unit in China. It's a pretty good result there near Yankou. 2-1 casualties inflicted on a Japanese corps of infantry. Wondering if I should bring like more of these British troops. To North Africa. I don't know if I have enough to decisively overturn the results right now in North Africa. If the Germans get out here and get more supply, we could very quickly be in trouble. On the flip side of that, if they don't get more supply, I need strategic bombers to, like, cut their supply. That's really what I could use. But I don't know how much I can really support there either. And I need to frickin' reduce Mogadishu, so I'm not sure what the right course of action is for that. Maybe go for Kissimmee? Kissimeo? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I need a base of supply. They'll have a port down there, and it's in the middle of kind of nowhere. So we'll have to see what to do with that next turn. With that being said, that's probably going to do it for this turn. It'll be interesting to see what happens in Russia. We've weathered the initial 2 turns, and now the question is, can the Germans keep up the pressure? Obviously, they've got a superiority in the quality of their tanks, and they've got a superiority in the overall quality of their troops. But our defensive line behind the Dnieper is mostly still intact. They did take Kherson, and so that is a risk. They can flank and move south towards Sevastopol. We've got a couple of blocking forces to protect Rostov and the other areas back here. We've got a couple of units that moved west across the river here to try and draw some of the German attention, but the main body of their infantry is now coming up, so in the next turn or so, we may see a massed attack along our entire front. The Riga front does have the advantage of being behind a river, and for the most part, most of these infantry troops are very heavily dug in. We do lack adequate anti-aircraft, but we've got 4 hexes of fortifications here near the Daugavpils line here, and then we've also got a urban location here in Riga, and then we're building another fortification here to the east toward Polotsk if we can get 4 turns of peace and quiet on this 1 hex. And then we've just been massing troops near Orsha and near just to the west of Kharkov, or just to the east of Kiev, in the hope of delaying any sort of German breakthrough, that they may overwhelm us in 1 hex, but hopefully they can't do more than that, so that we can buy enough time to get us to winter. The next turn that we're going to run when the Germans move again is going to be the end of July. Our next turn will be August, so they've basically got an attack that'll occur in July, in August, September, and October, I think, before the winter will really start to kick in. So that's about 4 more turns for us to hold on. I think it's unlikely that they fully break through next turn, so that means 3 more turns that we have to hold after that. But we'll see, again, how things play out. There's a lot of uncertainty here, and it'll be interesting. With that being said, I am going to go ahead and sign off here for today. I hope you guys are enjoying this series as always, and until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you once again for watching, and until next time, I'm out.